I'm going to show you how to create custom metahumans in Unreal Engine 5.6 using Blender. This will allow you to create extreme deformations beyond what you can do in Unreal Engine 5.6 with ease. I spent hours and hours and haven't found a clear step-by-step tutorial how to do this from scratch, so I'm hoping this video will help you guys out. Wanted to also thank Jayaarka Studios for this workflow. So let's get started. First things first, you will want to ensure that Metahuman Core Creator Tools is enabled in Unreal Engine 5.6 when you install it. So if you're not sure if you installed it, you can just go to this Epic Games launcher, click this drop down, go to Options, and make sure that this Metahuman Creator Core data is checked. It will take about 5.5 gigabytes, so make sure that you have the required storage, and then just hit Apply. So once you've done that, go ahead and click Launch to launch Unreal Engine 5.6. We'll also need to enable Metahuman in the plugins, because now in Unreal Engine 5.6, Metahuman is built into Unreal Engine. So just go into Edit, Plugins, then search for Metahuman, and tick all of these Metahuman plugins to enable them. Then close and restart when prompted to. Once you've done that, we can now go ahead and start to create the base for our Metahuman character in Unreal Engine. So it doesn't matter where you create the folder. Just to make it easier, I just created a folder called Metahumans, and I'm just going to create a new folder here called Test Character 2, just because I've created another character earlier. So we'll just go into the folder, right-click, Metahuman, Metahuman Character. And I'm going to name this one Test Character 2 Base. All right. So now I'll double click and open this character, and you'll be presented with this screen. So as you can see, you no longer need to go to Quixel Bridge or whatever to create your Metahuman. It's all done inside of Unreal Engine now. So what you want to do is you will now want to make changes to your Metahuman to roughly match the kind of character that you want to create. So even if it's a stylized character or whatever, you want to roughly match the shape of that character in Unreal Engine to start with, because it will save you a bit of time later down the road. So what we can do is you can either go to Sculpt, and then you can start to push and pull these different controls. Usually I like to enable symmetry. So yeah, symmetric manipulation would be good for this case. So we can change the shape of the eyes. If you're familiar with Blender, we can also go to Transform, and we can move or rotate or scale different features of this character. So for example, if I wanted this character to have big eyes, I just press this scale, click on this control, make sure symmetry is enabled, and then just click and drag to make the eyes bigger. So in this case, I'm just going to make the eyes pretty big, like a stylized character. Make the nose small. As you can see, there's a bit of limitation. There's a limit beyond how much I can scale down. So that's why we're going to use Blender, because we want to go beyond those limits. We want to make the lips maybe bigger. And maybe the ears bigger as well. So I'm just freestyling it now, but you can obviously use references or whatever to somewhat roughly match the type of character that you're going for. To do the same with the body, just go into Body. And with the body, unfortunately, we don't have Sculpt or Transform kind of controls. So we'll just have to go into Model, and we'll just sort of play around with these kind of settings to change the look of the character. So if you want to make them big or skinny, you can control that here. Once you're happy with the sculpt, we can go ahead and add materials. So just go ahead and click Materials, and you'll be presented with a default material. You can change the color to whatever you like. You can add freckles or anything you like, but I'm not going to really focus on the materials in this tutorial. Neither am I going to focus on the hair and stuff. We'll focus on that in another tutorial. Bear in mind that you can also make use of these presets as well. So you can always start with one of these existing characters and then make your sculpts from that. But I'm just going to start with this, just the default, just to show how I do this from scratch. So the next thing we need to do is we need to export this out so that we can make further changes in Blender. So I'd go to Assemble, but the thing is we can't assemble it without rigging the character. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Create Full Rig. So this will handle the automatic rigging of your entire character. As you can see, it's auto rigging the face and will also rig the body as well. All right, so the character is now rigged. One more thing we need to do before we can assemble our character is download the textures. So I'm just going to go to download the texture source, and I'm going to download the 2K resolution textures. Once that is done, we can start to assemble our character, but we can't see the button. I don't know if this is a bug in Unreal Engine 5.6 or not, but to get the button, just go into another of these buttons and then go back to assemble again, and you'll see the button. And it's kind of weird. And then we just go ahead and click assemble. This will create our Unreal Engine character that we can actually use in our Unreal Engine world. But in our case, we want to export that character out to Blender to do some further deformations. All right, so that's now done. So if I go back and I can now close this, I'll see that my test character 2 has been created over here. We can see that Metahuman creator has assembled our blueprint character for us and has added these 2 new folders as well for our base character. So we'll need to export the static meshes out so that we can import it into Blender. And we'll need to export 2 static meshes, the body and the face. So let's go into body. Let's have a look at, we don't want this physics asset, we want this skeletal mesh over here. So let's right click this one, asset actions, export, and we want to export this as an FBX. So I'm just going to call this one test character 2 base body mesh. We want to uncheck level of detail. We want to check export source mesh, and we can just leave all this as the default. And then just hit export. All right, that's done. Let's go back. Let's now go into face. And then we want to right click this face skeletal mesh. Asset actions, export. Again, it will be an FBX file. And we'll want to ideally store this in the same folder as the body mesh. So let's go ahead and click save. The same settings as before. Export. Cool. So with that done, we can now go into Blender. In Blender, I'm going to go ahead and select everything by hitting A, X, delete. Alternatively, you can just go ahead and right-click this collection, select objects, and right-click, delete. And that should delete everything in your scene. So you should have an empty scene. I only deleted them because it's kind of cluttering up our scene. Now that we have an empty scene, we can go ahead and import our face and body. So let's go to File, Import, FBX. Let's find our face mesh and our body mesh. So, yep, that's our body mesh and our face mesh. Sorry, I have all these other files that I was playing around with, but this is the one that we created, test character 2 base. So let's go ahead and import those 2 files. I'm just going to leave these as a default. Let's uncheck animation though. And let's import FBX. So we can see our character has been imported here, which looks a little bit strange. So we can just go ahead and select this rig and hit H to hide it. Select this rig as well. And hit H to hide it as well. Okay, so we're only left with these meshes. We need to separate out the eyes, the teeth, and the eyebrows. So to do that, we're going to make use of these materials. So I'm just going to go into edit mode real quick. Let's press A twice to deselect everything. Or you can also go to select none. And then we'll just go ahead and select the eyes. Select IR. Okay, so let's pretty much select everything. IL, IR, eye face, eye shell, eyelashes, and lacrimal fluid. Pretty much everything up to this height. Yeah, we don't need to worry about any of this LED stuff. And what you should be left with is all these, just the eyes, the eyelashes, the tear duct, and the teeth, and the mouth. So after you've done that, press the P and separate by selection. Okay, now we can go out and start to sculpt out the head and the body. So here we can pretty much go crazy and make our extreme deformations however we want. So select the head and select the body, and then hit Tab to go into edit mode. So now you can edit everything in one go. and make changes as necessary. Alternatively, if you want to do it via sculpt mode, you can do that as well. So we can just go to sculpt mode. But the difference with sculpt mode is you'll have to sculpt them individually one by one. So let's start with the head. Go ahead and select the head. Go into sculpting over here. So you'll be in sculpt mode. And I want to change this matcap view to be another one, so it's easier to see our sculpting changes. So here we can go ahead and make changes to our character. One thing that's very important is that we do not modify the topology or the word count in any way with this character. Otherwise, it will break when we re-import it back into Unreal Engine. So if I just go into edit mode real quick, as you can see, we have these vertices. We don't want to add loop cuts or those kind of things into our character because it'll break the topology of it. We want to keep the topology exactly as is, but we just want to pretty much like push and pull the vertices to create new different shapes, if that makes sense. So in other words, we don't want to enable dynamic topology or remesh or anything that could alter the vertices of this character, right? So we don't want to break anything. I can go over here and maybe take the snake hook tool and make radical modifications to this character. I can actually enable symmetry because that's not going to break the topology. So we can just, add these kind of weird shapes. Okay, just the basics just to start with, and yeah, that's that for that. So I can go back into layout again. Let's select the body and let's do the same thing. Let's just go crazy and modify the shape. Again, we don't want to modify the topology, we just want to modify the shape. Okay, so we have this character, which looks like a kind of character that lives like underwater or something. Okay, so we're now ready to export this back out to Unreal Engine. If we attempt to just export this one directly out and import it back into Unreal Engine, it will break. And the reason is because the topology of this character, when we exported it out of Unreal Engine, it triangulated it like this. So when you re-import it back into Unreal Engine, it will complain that the topology is broken and it can't create your deformation. So that's why a lot of people have been struggling with creating these kind of unique deformations in Blender. The best workaround to this is to actually import the correct topology into Unreal Engine. And the way to do that is to bring in a proper topology metahuman. So I've included a link in the description. Again, thanks to Jayaarka Studios for providing access to the file. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and append that metahuman topology base mesh into our scene right here. So if you download it, you'll get a file called mhtopologies.blend. So just double click into it. You want to go into Object and bring in Topo Metahuman. So let's just append that. Also, you want to append a collection called Car Polyhammer Base. We're going to use another plugin called the Mesh to Transfer plugin. So again, I've put the link in the description. So once you download that plugin, you just go to Edit, Preferences, okay, under Addon. So this is assuming you're using Blender 4.2 and above. You'll want to click this drop down, Install from Disk, and you'll want to include that, that zip file if you have it. It should come up like this, called Mesh Data Transfer. Okay, once you have that, we now need to transfer this mesh data onto this one. And the reason why is because if we go into edit mode, you can see that this is all in quads, and this will import correctly into Unreal Engine 5.6. So let's start with the body. So select the body, go into data, expand mesh data transfer. We want to select the source object to be this body over here. Okay, and then make sure active UV is selected, and then just hit transfer mesh data. Okay, you'll find that the character goes extremely huge, but it doesn't matter. We'll come back to that. Let's select this head. Let's go to mesh data transfer, select this object, let it be this head. Make sure active UV is checked, transfer mesh data. And we should have something that looks like that. So if we look into our topology, we still have those quads over here. So this should import nicely into Unreal Engine. Okay, so before I export it out, we want to ensure that we bring our character back to its original size, because this character is way too big. For some reason, it scales it up by like 100 when we do the mesh transfer. So we need to scale it down by 100. So just select the head, press S, or you can also go to Object, Transform, Scale, and hit 0.01 and hit Enter. Do the same with the body. So again, S 0.01 will do the same thing. So if we go now and we look at our character, we can see that it matches up with the original character as well. And this is what we can export into Unreal Engine. Okay, once we've done that, we'll also need to apply the scale. So let's go to Object, Apply Scale. So that should fix that. Let's do the same to the body. Topo Metahuman, Object, Apply Scale. So once you're done with that, just need to select your base head, go to File, Export, FBX, and then we can just rename it. In this case, I want to rename it as Final for the face mesh. Let's do the same with the body. Make sure Topo Metahuman is selected, File, Export, FBX, and these settings should be ticked by default. Let's just rename that to Final, Export, FBX. And we're now ready to put this into Unreal Engine. So now I'm going to move this to another tab in Unreal Engine, so we have one screen. And back in the main, I forgot to import in our FBX files. So let's go ahead and do that. So I named this one Final Body Mesh and Final Face Mesh. Let's just drag that into here. We can pretty much leave the defaults. I don't know if we need to import anything else, but I'm just going to leave the default and just hit import. So now I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate my Metahuman. So all I did is right click, duplicate, and that will create my duplicate Metahuman over here. Once that is done, I'm just going to go ahead and double click to open my duplicated one. The reason why I'm creating a duplicate is just to keep this as a backup. So in case something breaks or something, we can always go back to our backup and start again. All right, so now that we're here, what we need to do is we now need to conform our static meshes onto our Unreal Engine character. In order to do this, we need to unrig our character. So let's just go ahead and remove his rig so that it will enable these buttons. Cool, so we can see that these buttons are enabled now. So let's start with the body. Let's go to conform from template, and we want to bring in our static mesh for the body. So I think I named it as final. Yep. So I'm going to bring in the final body mesh, and I'm just going to hit import. Now we can see our Blender deformations being applied to our character. So this would not be possible to do in Unreal Engine using these control sliders by default. So that's why we're using Blender, because we can create these kind of extreme deformations. So let's do the same with the head as well. So let's click into this head. Let's go to conform from template. I'm going to go ahead and change this alignment options to none. And let's select the head. So I'm going to final. I have 2 over here because I imported this one by accident. So the V1 is the one that's the correct one. We don't need to worry about the eyes, the right or left eyes or the teeth. If you made modifications to that, you can also export that and bring that in here, but I'm just going to modify the head and hit conform. And that is our custom character. And again, this would not be possible to do in Unreal Engine by default. I mean, maybe in the future it might be, but for now, it's not possible. So using Blender to create these kind of custom characters will make your characters stand out from the whole sea of generic looking characters that everyone else is able to create. So let's go ahead and look at this in animated form. So let's go ahead and create the full rig again. All right, cool. So it's done. And we can give our animation a little test. So let's have a look at some sequences. Like maybe for the face, we might go happy. Body, we might do also maybe a happy. And then let's play back this animation. Now we can see our custom character being animated. So I hope this video has been helpful. Again, I'm going to be creating an animated feature film from scratch using nothing but Unreal Engine and Blender. So if you want to follow me on my journey, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching.